Hey folks, it's Woody here over at USMA Blade and just coming to you from the shop tonight. This video probably should have been done 2 years ago, to be honest with you. But here we are, and we're doing it tonight for several reasons. So basically what this video is, I'm sure you read the title, is a breakdown reassembly video of the Southern Grind Spider Monkey. And we're doing this because every week we get phone calls basically talking about the YouTube review that Nick Shabazz did on the Spider Monkey. And we like Nick. Nick's a good guy, and he has good intent. But I contacted him and tried to get him to redo the review on it. And one of his biggest complaints in the review is the proprietary screws, which there's nothing we can change on that. That's a Southern Grind thing. But and then just the absolute complication that he had on not taking it apart so much, but putting it back together. And when we talked to Nick about it, it was just one of those things that it's, hey, this is the knife that I got, and this is how it went. And no doubt, obviously, he had his issues, but his review, I think, and breakdown video that he did is about 3 years old. And we are still getting phone calls about it. Like, hey, I'm concerned about buying one of these. I want to be able to take it apart. And guys, outside of the people who assemble these at Southern Grind, I don't think there's anybody that takes as many of these apart and puts them back together as I do. Mostly because these titanium liners, we always enjoy anodizing. So I figure I'm getting ready to anodize these blue. I would do a video while I'm breaking it down and show you guys the breakdown and the assembly process. So let's get started. As always, I've got, let me show you what you're gonna need here. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you like to take apart knives and put them back together, get yourself some Weehaw bits. So we don't sell them, so that's got to be a pretty big endorsement. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but Weehaw just is going to keep you from stripping screws and having the problems that you will with the cheap stuff you get at most hardware stores. So you're going to need a Torx T6 and a Torx T8 to get started, and then you're also going to need, well, it won't zoom in there. Piece of crap. There we go. You're going to need the snake eye tool bit. So we sell these. We're out of stock at the moment, but we've got more coming in just a couple days. But that's what you're going to need. Let's see if this will focus back in. All right, get started. Start on the presentation side and then the lock side. So start on the lock side. This is where you're going to need the Torx T8 bit. And this comes undone nice and easy. I should have shown it beforehand, but this one was nice and centered. There were no problems. So get your pivot screw out here, and then you're going to need your snake eye tool bit for the handle, the first handle screw. And Nick seemed to struggle with the snake eye bit. I typically haven't had too many issues. It pops right in and seems to come apart pretty easily for me. But anyway, then from here, you're going to use T6 on your pocket clip screws. Now, on your pocket clip screws, there are two different sizes. So the one in the center goes into your standoff. So it is longer. The other two just go into the titanium handle, or the titanium liner. So I like to keep them all together, but just to show you there, you can see that one is longer. So if they do pop out when you're taking it apart, which let me just go ahead and dump them, you'll see that one is longer than the other two. So use the two shorter ones on the other end. We'll get into that when we put it back together. So when doing that, this scale pops right off. Now, in all honesty, it's funny because Nick's problem was putting the knife back together, but he never really showed the original taking it apart. And some of these come right apart, and I think this one's going to. But some of them, you've got to pop from the bottom. And yeah, this one came right off. So not the greatest example of this, but then you have to work from the bottom and twist and turn to get this to come off that pivot head. And that is typically If I have any problems, that is my problem. That is the only issue I have. And that is just because the tolerances on these are really tight. They make these, everything's just put together so well. So you got your washers on each side. And we're going to do a complete breakdown. Here comes your stop pin. That was another issue in Nick's video that was a problem that we'll talk about in a little bit. Take your pivot nut out, your other washer off. And then from here, typically, I can just use my my snake eye tool bit. And I told you guys I typically don't have a problem, but I'm working from behind the camera here. And these, typically, I can hold and get undone, but sometimes you're going to want to put a little pressure. So just put a paper towel or a cloth or something around some pliers and and tighten it down on these standoffs if for some reason you can't just use your fingers and hold them tight. But there they go. So there we are. Ease of breakdown is pretty darn simple if you have the right tools. Didn't take long at all. So we're going to come back. I'm going to show you the reassembly process and how very simple it's been for me. Show you that it locks up dead centered and everything else. But I'm going to take a second and anodize these liners blue, and then I'll come back to you. All right, so we're back, and I've got our liners anodized. They're a stunning blue. They look very, very nicely, especially when you put them up against that carbon fiber, which we're going to do in just a second. So you're going to start by working your presentation side, which is different. A lot of knives you end up working your lock side first, but on these, start your presentation side. You're going to use the snake eye tool, and just go ahead and set that on the tool itself. It does help. And get your first standoff on there. Now, when you're working this side, everything, when you get started, everything is just going to be loosely put on. You're going to get not even snug tight. Like as soon as you feel a little bit of snugness, you're done. I mean, it's barely tight at all. So I'm doing this way because I'm working behind the camera, and honestly it just makes it easier. But as far as setting the screws onto the bit, so once again we're just going to get not too tight, just barely on there. As soon as I felt that get snug, I backed it off just a little. So, and then from here you're going to take your pivot nut, and this is actually cut out, so it's completely circular except you've got one little flat surface. And the reason for that is because they wanted to do it to where it lines up so that the spider monkey on it is always facing the same way. So once you get your pivot nut in there, then go ahead and get your washers. I like to get the washers and the blade on first. And mostly because when I put my stop pin in, I'm not bouncing it back out. Now, Nick seemed to have a problem with the stop pin, said it was oblong, something like that. Guys, I've never had that issue, not once. And I mean, I'm telling you, I've disassembled and reassembled hundreds and hundreds of these. So from there, put your lock side on. Now, I just put it on and let the lock go in. I try to make sure it's not jammed in there. And then, like I said, everything's going on a little loose. We're not over tightening. From here, get your pivot screw, and once again, don't go all the way tight. But truthfully, this is how I do most knives. You snug everything up at the end. So just get it on there, and then from here, get my other handle screw here, Again, I'm too far away to see it. And get the screw put in. Like I said, we're not going all the way tight, but we're gonna get close. And then, honest to God, to put the pocket clip on, I do like to close the knife. And I always start with the longest screw. Like I said, there are 3 screws. One is longer than the other 2, and the long one goes into the center so that it matches up and goes into that standoff. And once again, not too tight. And one of the reasons especially you don't want to do this one too tight, back that off just a little, is because you got to move your pocket clip around just a little to make sure to get those holes to match up. And then now this on the handle, I do go ahead and tighten these 2 on the other ends. And then, so everything, those 2 are tight, but everything else is pretty loose. So we're sitting pretty off-centered here. And then from here, I am gonna go back and tighten all my other handle screws. Just like to make sure I get everything good and snug. And when I say tighten, don't go nuts. And then from here, I go to about that 90-degree mark. A little past it actually. And get it snug. And I can already tell you by the way it closed, it's a little too tight. So back it off just a hair. And I bet you that's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So from here, I do typically drop a little bit of lube back down in there, especially with anodizing, all the lube's been removed. And then I pull my pivot back out and put just a little bit of Loctite on it, but I always like to make sure there aren't any problems. I'm sitting good and dead centered, which I am. See if I can get that to show in there. Nice and centered, good action on it. You can hear that lock up. While I'm talking about Nick and just got to bring it up, the other thing that in his video that he did talk about with these was lock stick. There isn't any. We haven't had issues with lock stick on these since the first ones ever came out. So that's it. That's the disassembly, reassembly of the Southern Grind Spider Monkey. This is the carbon fiber version. We've had several exclusives that were pretty much, we had a red G10 one that we're just about sold out on. Probably sold out by the time I get this video posted. And we've done a Jade Ghost one in the past that we sold out. But we're doing a new exclusive with them that'll be coming out soon in the next couple months. But we've got plenty of carbon fiber versions in stock. So we hope you'll check them out. Don't be afraid of this knife. I'm just not sure what happened with Nick. I think he just got one of the bad ones. But I take these apart and put them back together every day, and I never have the issues that he had. So anyway, hope this helps everybody out there. If you've got questions about the knife, assembly, disassembly, you can always email me at scott@usamadeblade.com. That's Scott with 2 T's at usamadeblade.com. And these are available on our site at www.usamadeblade.com. And we appreciate everybody watching.